Afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. You're welcome. I see quite a number of us are still joining. You're welcome to this 6th session. You're welcome. Okay. So I welcome every one of us. I welcome all our amazing mentees. Madam Chair, you're welcome. All committee members on the call, you're welcome. And every representative of the WIMBiz HQ, I welcome you all specially to this session. My name is Ololade George Aremu, and it's my absolute pleasure to serve as your anchor for today's session. And today's session is themed Corporate Governance and Board Leadership. Today, we gather as community of aspiring board leaders, united by one shared ambition to shape the future of corporate governance. This session today is especially exciting for me because it offers us a unique opportunity to learn firsthand from an industry expert, practical insight. We are going to gain practical insight, and we are going to have the opportunity to also network with passionate mentees like us who are aspiring to get into board positions or to also do well in their leadership journey. So whether you're preparing for your first board role, or you're seeking to elevate your leadership journey, it's an opportunity for you to engage in today's session, because today's session promises actionable guidance and inspiration. I will set the expectations of today's session very quickly, and I look forward to every mentee joined today to please engage with today's session. One of the core expectations is for everyone to actively participate. You have the opportunity to ask questions as much as you can. Share your thoughts using the chat box, please, and please take full advantage of the collective wisdom in the room. The chat box is open to all. We encourage you to use your emojis, and it will be so nice to see if you're on this call, just put in 1 or 2 emojis to be sure that you're ready and pumped up for today's session. So we encourage you to use some emojis as much as possible to show how you feel as we engage in today's session. The second expectation is that we are going to learn and gain practical strategies, real-world examples, and proven frameworks that will help us excel as board members. The third one, which I think is also equally important, is that we're going to also have an opportunity to network and gain the opportunity to connect with mentors, mentees who can support and challenge us as we pursue our board opportunities. Now, to officially commence our session, it is my honor to invite Mrs. Hilda Unko, the Chair of 2025 WIMBoard Mentoring Committee, WIMBiz, to deliver our remarks. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Please confirm that everybody can hear me.
Yes, I can, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, our distinguished speaker. Good afternoon, our mentors, our observers, our staff from HQ, and of course, our incredible mentees. And it is with great pleasure that I welcome you to yet another enriching session in our WIMBoard mentoring journey. The program has been designed, to do more than build knowledge. It's about, shaping board-ready women. And we began our foundational themes like personal branding, building a board-ready profile. Then we stepped into my journey to the boardroom and, of course, understanding boardroom dynamics. But very recently, that's last week, we had our first mentor-led board simulation exercise, and it was an incredible and impactful eye-opener for a lot of mentees and observers. It was a rare opportunity to step into the boardroom, grapple with real-life governance scenarios, and then, of course, practice leadership in a high-stakes, high accountability environment. And the feedback, like I said earlier, has been overwhelmingly positive. And it's clear that the simulation added a critical layer of experiential learning to everything we've been building so far. Today, We continue to build on that momentum with a topic that sits at the heart of board effectiveness, and that is corporate governance and board dynamics. And we're privileged to have with us Mr. Alawusa Adewuyi, a seasoned governance professional with deep knowledge of leadership and experience. And he will no doubt sharpen our understanding of what it truly means to govern well and lead responsibly at the board level. And this session promises to be both practical and thought-provoking. To our mentees, like I always say, I encourage you to lean in. You are not just attending a talk. It's not just a seminar. You are shaping your future. Governance is not abstract. It's living, it's breathing, it's functional as far as leadership is concerned. And today, you will learn what it takes to get it right. So on behalf of the WIMBoard Committee and WIMBI's Executive Council, thank you once again for showing up, not just in this session, but for the journey towards boardroom excellence. Welcome, and let's make this session count.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for your welcoming words and for setting the tone for the session. Now, mentees, let's move to the heart of our program. I am delighted this afternoon to introduce our distinguished speaker, Mr. Alawusa Adewuyi, the Company Secretary at Asset and Resource Management Holding Company. Mr. Alawusa Adewuyi is a consummate legal practitioner with over 29 years experience, 25 of which represent hands-on experience in financial services, providing legal advisory, legal and compliance risk management, governance advisory, custodian services, brand administration, and people management. As a corporate and investment banker, he managed the legal aspect of a wide array of short-term credit facilities, both in local and foreign currency, to fund working capital in trade and project finance while supporting deal origination, negotiation, and execution in the investment banking division of a merchant bank. His career commenced with the law firm of Olawuyi and Olawuyi, and he thereafter moved to United Bank of Africa PLC, Intercontinental Bank PLC, Kakawa Discount House, and FBN Quest Merchant Bank before joining ARM Holding Company Limited. Mr. Alawusa has held legal teams in the acquisition and mergers of banks, led the corporate services group of Discount House, including supervision of human resource management, supported a company from 100 million naira seed capital to 5 billion naira share capital, and has supported the boards of diverse companies without any major loss in the last 5 years, and has successfully engaged at the highest level of governance and corporate leadership. He holds a first degree in law from the Obafemi Awolowo University and a BL from the Nigerian Law School and LLM from the University of London. He is the alumni of the Lagos Business School, a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Secretaries and Administrators, United Kingdom, and Nigeria, a member of the Sustainability Professional Institute of Nigeria, and a member of the Institute of Directors. He is also a member of the Ikoyi Club. Just before I welcome Mr. Adewuyi to take the floor, I've just been informed that our chair board of the directors of WIMBIZ has joined us just recently, Mrs. B.C. Adeyemi. Please let's welcome her. You're welcome, ma'am. So over to you, Mr. Adewuyi. You're welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone, and please permit me to also welcome Ms. Adeyemi in my own right as a speaker for today, since I have the microphone. Good afternoon, madam. Let me thank the organizers for this opportunity. Incidentally, I saw Mrs. Adeyemi, was it 2 or 3 days ago? And I didn't even think of mentioning this to her. Okay, my bad, like the Gen Z will say. So today, I've been called to discuss a topic very dear to me. Let me just try and do my slideshow. okay, corporate governance and board leadership. And underneath this topic, I'm supposed to speak about the role of the board, the role of directors, and expectations. So in doing this, I tried to develop a form of outline. I don't want to assume everybody on this call is a lawyer and everybody is conversant with how a board works. So we're going to be looking at some definitions. We are going to be looking at some wide sayings. I found those very, very helpful, especially when I'm under serious pressure. People that have gone ahead of me, how have they managed? What have they done? What has inspired them? So it has helped me. So from there, I will now begin to go into specifics. Hopefully, I won't bore you so much. And as much as possible, I will try to give practical examples. That will take me to what the board structure looks like and the expectations of the board from executive management. We all know the board comes maximum 4, 5 times, 6 if there's a crisis a year, to just interact with management and give a form of overview on what is happening. So what does the board expect when they come for those meetings? When they are not there, what does the board expect? So hopefully before the end or by the end of this intervention, all of us will at least be pseudo directors in a way. We'll have this feeling that if I sit on a board now, nothing will happen, and let's just go there. So the definitions are broken down into like 3. I talked about trying to define what a company is. So if we are talking about a board of directors, we are talking about board leadership. Board leadership is not in isolation. It exists within a sphere, a framework. And so the company is the framework where that exists. And who are the people that we are concerned about here? The directors. And where do they function? They function within a board. And I'm going to be taking that one after the other. So when I looked at the Companies and Allied Matters Act, it didn't really help me. I look at the interpretation section, and what I got is using the name company, and I found that very, very unhelpful because I wanted a definition. So I went further into the act, and then I got to section 42 and 43, which was also talking about the outcome of the formation of a company, and then also giving me some keywords. Subscribers to the memorandum. Memorandum is the document which is like the constitution between the members of the company and the company. And then certificate of incorporation, which is like the birth certificate of that company. So what does this do? It was telling me about the powers and the effects. However, one thing that was clear after trying to get a definition of a company is that a company upon incorporation, upon registration, becomes a natural person. Now, the company assumes the powers of a natural person upon incorporation. And what does that do? It makes the company a juristic personality. Now, for non-lawyers, that means you have legal existence. It means that you can sue and be sued. Whatever a natural person can do upon incorporation, a company is able to do. Now, if you are going to summarize all that, what we'll be saying is that a company is just a legal construct. It's just a creation of the law, a creation of the law for an entity to function and be known, okay, by a particular name upon which is registered. And so a company is a legal construct, but because it's a legal structure, it's inanimate, it cannot act on its own, it doesn't have a life of its own, the company has to operate through some people. And those people the company will operate through are the directors of that company. So essentially, a company is a legal construct without its own life and must act through human beings called directors. Now, I go further. So that's the first time we're introducing the word director. So what does a director mean? Again, I went to the interpretation section of CAMA. It still didn't help me. It was still using director to define what director is. Says any person occupying the position of a director. How does that really help me? It doesn't help me. So I went further into the act, and then 291 gave me some respite. It now defines who a director is. Say someone appointed by a company, we defined company earlier, registered under the Act to manage and direct the affairs of the company. So the hands and legs and the brains and mind of an inanimate object are the directors. And then goes further under that section to say, if I represent myself as a director, nobody will be obliged to go further to confirm especially when the company is representing me as that director, whether I'm properly appointed or properly registered or not. So what the takeaway here is that directors are people appointed by the company, owners of the company, to direct the affairs of their company. So that is straightforward. So I try to now, so we've tried to understand what director means now. But try to now please try and define, because there are different types of directors. And I picked this some from best practice, some from actually looking at the act. And section 280, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me just go back. Okay, so to now further define what a director means, or who cannot be a director, I went into the act further and I began to, and this will be interesting to a lot of us because a lot of us, in trying to preserve our legacy, we form companies, ourselves and our spouse are the directors, and we make all our children directors. Hopefully nothing happens to the two of us, because those children, when they are minors, the law says they can't be directors. So somebody by section 283 of CAMA, somebody that's under 18 years cannot be a director. But it doesn't mean you cannot try and incorporate your children. All you need to do is that there must be a guardian that will be acting and representing them until they are of age. Somebody that's a lunatic cannot be a director. Somebody removed or suspended under section 288 of CAMA. That's very instructive. So if you are disqualified or dismissed from a board, then that's a bar to being a director, and that's under section 283 of CAMA. So a person disqualified under section 279, those are also conditions that maybe a lunatic, someone that has gone bankrupt, for example, we can't be a director. Someone that's been disqualified by a regulatory body can't be a director. Also, a company cannot be a director in another company. It has to be represented by somebody. So the board of directors is the third leg of the definitions that we set for ourselves. Now, so the board of directors, we defined company now, we defined who a director is. So as a body, the board of directors is just a collection of individuals that represent the shareholders. Now, if you are governance oriented, that should begin to ask questions. Do directors represent shareholders or the interests of best corporate governance? Do directors represent shareholders or they represent objectivity? Now, this is a quotation from someone from the Corporate Governance Institute. Is the head of their, forgotten what his role is now, but it's in terms of corporate service and all that at that institute. So he tried to give a definition, and he said there are a group of elected individuals representing the shareholders. He is correct, because shareholders have a say, because they actually approved the appointment of directors, whether it was a casual vacancy that was filled, they approved at the AGM, or whether they are the ones that actually approved the directors themselves. Yes, they appoint the directors. However, are directors really enamored to shareholders? Because shareholder interests and sustainability interests at times may collide. A shareholder may want a dividend by whatever means. Now, directors may be looking at sustainability and to say that we cannot pay dividends for the next 2 or 3 years. Shareholders are saying you don't have any money because you're independent directors, for example. I'm the one that staked the equity for this business. I need returns on my money. So there could be a clash. Who do directors represent on the board? Is it best practice, objectivity? Is the obligation to the company or to the shareholders or to themselves? Maybe we'll get there very soon. So on the board of directors, you have somebody who's a director. I call the chairman first among equals, also a director, but this person has been appointed by his colleagues, because the directors appoint the chairman, at least in theory, in quotes. The directors from among them appoint the chairman of the board. And that's instructive because the chairman has a casting vote, which makes him a bit superior in authority on the board. If there's a tie on the board, he has a casting vote, which means he can cast a vote a second time to tilt the resolution either way. Now, so we have non-executive directors, and then we have independent non-executive directors. The difference is in how they were appointed and their qualification. So just an INED is one that does not have material interests so that we don't confuse our non-lawyer friends, does not have material interest in the ownership of the company, or does not have material interest as a vendor in that company or as a consultant, someone that does not derive much benefit outside director's fees from that company. Non-executive director can, however, it has to be disclosed. And then you have the executive directors. These are directors that have a contract with the company. These are staff members, but have a dual role. They are staff members and they are also directors, members of the board of directors. And then you have the company secretary. Now, the company secretary may or may not be a director, but the company secretary is a life of the board. If I was joking with a few colleagues, and I said, if you have an inexperienced MD and you have a very experienced company secretary, there may not be so much gap. But if you have a very experienced MD and you have a very inexperienced secretary, there will be clashes, whether you like it or not, because there will be gaps. But what a company secretary does is to facilitate board engagement, board meetings, board interaction, and board dynamics. A company secretary sees the tension, a company secretary douses the tension, a company secretary is able to access all the directors and, as much as possible, maintain harmony outside, unseen. That's the unseen hand under the board. In my experience, we had to resolve issues that would have escalated seriously at board meetings. However, because you can sense when it's happening, you can see it's going to happen, and so you talk to the director separately, and then by the time they get to the board, without mentioning your name, things just begin to move swiftly and move well. And then nobody mentions your name, nobody gives you an award for that, but people that know your worth actually reward that. So let's now move to one or two wise sayings before we get into the meat of the discussions today. So Azu is a consultant and one of the renowned digital geniuses of our time. She's in China. And in trying to define a board, she had this to say, that in a world of well-defined problems, which means whether we like it or not, a board and the business consists of well-defined problems. Directors are required to exercise influence over volatility, manage uncertainty, simplify complexity, and resolve ambiguity in the 21st century digital environment. Okay? Now, I said when I'm under pressure, I don't know where to turn. I always like going to wise sayings. And this is one of the sayings I found and gave me comfort many years ago. So he said, no one said a business is easy. It is not. In fact, it can be frightening, exasperating, challenging, harrowing, and exhausting. When you feel your leadership batteries are running low, turn to words of wisdom for a quick boost. Now, I'm going to stop sharing in a bit, and I'm going to be asking if the organizers will permit me. Those two quotations, does anybody, maybe just one or two comment, does anybody have any takeaway from them? Those two quotations, especially Azu. How did it resonate with you? What's your takeaway from one or two of those quotations? If I have anybody that wants to contribute, maybe please help me unmute, and then maybe they can say something about it. Mr. Olade, okay, I see a hand up. I see Judith George. Okay, please, maybe can you enable? Okay, I see two hands now. I see Judith George, and then I see Uyo. Okay, please, can you please enable them to speak?
Please, can you help us? Thank you.
Thank you.
Just take,
okay.
yes.
Thank you. So I appreciate what you said about Belju and what she spoke about directors being able to exercise influence over volatility. So the business is full of uncertainties, and most times the executives, the company officers are busy working, trying to manage day-to-day activities, and they may not also be able to look far into the future to chart a path. So the directors help them to really come back and build strategies that can make the business long-lasting. And the directors help the company build legacy that outlives all of them and to build something that stands the test of time. So I like that they help manage that uncertainty and enable the simplification of complexity, especially as things are moving so fast in this 21st century. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks. So we all acknowledge that there will be problems. Everything is very fast-paced. Nothing is waiting for you. You have to grapple with the speed at which is happening and yet come out well. So directors should expect a lot of issues that is not plain sailing, it's not child's play, it's not just easy. So yes, I think we're just able to take two because of time, because I'm managing my time. I think permit me if I didn't pronounce this well. This is please Orife, please correct me if when you're on mute. Yes, please. I will just take two.
Good
Yes.
afternoon, sir. So my name is
Good afternoon.
Orifie. Thank you for
Thank you.
a valiant effort in pronouncing that.
Thank you.
Right. So you said very, very, very rightly put, in terms of the work of the directors. I also have a former boss now who used to say our work is to solve problems. Now, and that I remember that when I encounter situations perhaps where I don't know exactly what to do, and it inspires me to say, okay, this might be a novel situation to you, but perhaps it's not novel to anyone else or other people. So maybe one way is to look for someone who might have the problem, who might know what the solution to that situation is, or be free to innovate and perhaps create a fitting solution for this. So I say all of that to say, in what I understand from what you're saying now is that board experiences they're not a walk in the park, pretty much all the time. And it's perhaps useful to expect situations that we've not encountered before, expect dynamics that are maybe outside of our immediate knowledge. But what to do in those situations is, kind of what my mentor mentioned to me, understand that our work here is to solve this problem. So, and then there's a Yoruba saying, if I can say that, something that doesn't have breath cannot be smarter than a human being. I can't really say it in Yoruba, but I've been taught that, yes. So if, whatever the situation is, if we put our collective minds together as humans, we might either innovate or find someone that has a solution to it. But understand that situations will come, but we should face them head on. I think that's kind of what I take from what you said.
Great.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you so much. So if I can give some life to what you just said, directors should expect that there will be problems. And like you said, they don't pay directors or they don't invite directors to the board because they have answers. They invite them to the board because they know there will be challenges and they will use their experience, their network, understanding to solve those problems. And that's why directors are appointed. In fact, from my experience, I've asked myself repeatedly why people actually want to be directors. Because if you have understanding of the obligations that are involved, the challenges that you can face while a director, you at times ask yourself, maybe it's not worth it. In my experience, I've had to go and build directors that knew nothing about what transpired at executive management level when the company collapsed. I have had to go and build directors in EFCC for what they did not know anything about. But by the time we are looking at the responsibilities of directors, you probably understand better what I'm saying. I see people are raising up their hands. I'm sorry, I probably won't be able to take more on that, but I've already noted Ugochi's, and maybe by the time I have another break to ask questions, probably ask you to speak. Apologies for that. So I will just move to appointment and removal of directors. So we've talked about what a company is, who the directors are. We've talked about the board of directors. We've talked about the structure of the board. Now, we want to talk about how these directors that are the hands, the legs, the brains, the minds of the company, how are they even appointed? So you can appoint directors when you're forming the company. So you include their names in your memorandum and articles of association. And then shareholders, like I said, can approve and appoint directors. The directors also can appoint another director to fill a casual vacancy. But that casual vacancy is subject to ratification of the shareholders at the next general meeting post their approval. Now, directors cannot appoint more than the number on the memorandum and articles. So if the articles say 10 directors, they can't say we think that somebody is very knowledgeable, will help us, and then appoint an 11th director without amending the memo. So that's where the power of the shareholders lies, because they can now control what happens on the board. So that's how directors are appointed. And how are they removed? By death, if you resign, and then the directors or the shareholders can remove a director. A director can be disqualified. Then rotation at the general meeting. Now, I need to say something here. Now, for directors that will be elected at general meeting, PAMA allows you to opt out of that regulation, which means you can, in your memo, say that at the AGM of the company, directors will not retire by rotation. And so a lot of private companies favor that, because if you are a very small board, for example, 4 or 5 directors, you're asking yourself why you want to keep doing this every AGM. So you can opt out, and PAMA allows you to do that. However, in my experience, I would say limit. It's just an inconvenience for the company secretary. It's not an inconvenience for directors anyway, because once directors are consenting to who is on the board, it's not a problem, because you just be appointed as a matter of course. However, if you have a difficult director, and that's why I always advise anywhere I work, then just leave it. It's a nuisance, but just leave it. Now, because all you need to do is wait for that director. You don't want to remove that director because it can have unintended consequences. Just don't elect that director at the AGM, and that's just by operation of law. And there's nothing he can do. You can't say you removed him. He was not just re-elected. He can't win in any court. And everybody is happier in the company because this person causing nuisance has just departed. Now, the types of directors we have, and I put this slide so that we have an idea of what happens behind the scenes. And there's something that Kama calls shadow director. This person is not a director on the board. He's not seen, not known, or is the one controlling the board. That person is a shadow director. This person is the power broker behind the board. He's not seen, okay? He's not on the board, not a director, may not even be a shareholder. However, this person is the power behind this company. He's the one taking all the decisions, but you will never see them. That's a shadow director. Now, independent non-executive director, I've already mentioned earlier, these are directors that don't have any material interest in the company, whether by salary as a consultant, or a vendor and a contract, or a shareholder in the company, no material ownership of the company. So the idea is that when they come on, they are able to provide objective solutions and interventions because they don't have any pecuniary interest in the company. Non-executive directors are people that are appointed as directors that are not in executive capacity. A de facto director, now, unlike a shadow director, this one is known. Everybody knows this one, but this person is not on the board. Now, if you may have worked in a place where every Monday when ESCO wants to have a meeting, the MD, the EDs, the top management staff, they enter a bus and drive somewhere and they don't come back until 4 o'clock. That's where a de facto director is. They've gone to the power broker to collect, they discuss what will happen for the week and take instructions. That is a de facto director. Now, all these have implications because Kama says that if these people are not directors, but they are the ones that directors are accustomed to taking instructions for, in a way, they are directors of the company. A life director is someone that you have appointed and could be there for life. If it's a PLC by 70 years, you need to get approval at the AGM. Okay, but this person can be removed. But if it's not removed and he keeps getting reappointed at the AGM for 70 years, this person can be director for life. A managing or executive director is a director that has a contract with the company. Again, when we go into the role of the board, I try to put from this, I like Per Zoo a lot. And he says the role of the board is to pull management out of the trees to see the forest. Now, I would have said, let's discuss this, but I think my time is running low. What Pearl is saying here is that the role of the board is not to dwell in specifics. The role of the board is to dwell in the big picture. If you focus on the tree, you only see specifics, details that won't take the company anywhere. However, if you see the forest, you are focused on the strategy. Why was this company formed? What was the push and the motivation of the founding fathers of this company? What did they set out to achieve? So Apple said it was looking at the lifestyle of people. And Steve Jobs, when he was talking about his computer, he said he wants to put a computer in front of everybody at home all over the world. And so if somebody in Apple just begins to focus on one particular thing, they will tell them that, come, what we want to do is to put a laptop or a computer in front of everybody at every home in the world. So focus on that. The role of the board is to focus on the strategy, the mission and the vision of the company. What was this company set for? What does this company want to achieve, rather than dwelling on specifics? Now, later on, before I get to the end, when we are looking at responsibilities of directors, we are still going to come back here, because there's always been a challenge at the board level on where the boundaries are. At what point is the board moving into what is the obligation or the duty, responsibility of management? Especially these days, a lot of technocrats who are executive directors, managing directors are retiring, and then are going back to the board as INED and non-executive directors. At what point do you remove the toga of a director and become management? And that is actually important. So role of the board is well defined, whether it's in a corporate governance code, whether it's in best practice, whether it's in CAMA, they're well defined. And I just summarized a few here. It's strategy and planning, okay? Looking at the mission and vision of the founding fathers or the board, looking at the economy, looking at macros and of everything. How do we survive? Now, that is the job of the board, strategy and planning. So at every board meeting, looking at strategy, where are we? Have we achieved what we plan to do? What are the setbacks? That is the job of the board. Then oversight of executive management. That the board is delegating the powers to run that company to executive management. And then they must monitor how they are doing that. Executive compensation, that's a very sore point for a lot of people. Determining what the benefits of executive directors and top management are. Then effective controls, you can't say too much about effective controls. And this is where a lot of directors get into trouble. I said that in my career, I've had to go and bail directors from EFCC because the company went down and government came after the company. And then directors are the first port of call. The question is, under your watch, this company failed. It means you have failed, you have shared your responsibilities. Because if you look at the screen, one of the duties of the directors is to establish effective controls that embody best-in-class risk management, compliance, internal audit, control, and all that. So if a company fails, it means that one of these assurance duties has failed. And if it has failed, it means that the duty of the responsibility of the directors has not been met. And then people start asking them questions. Do you divert money they didn't even see? They may have been cooking the books under them, and they will probably not even know. And so there's a lot of risks that directors carry. And that's why I've been asking myself over the years, why does anybody even want to be a director? You just come 3, 4, 5 times, and then what you don't know anything about can just be put on you. So internal audit and control is part of what you will do. Succession planning, ensuring that the company has particular succession. After this MD, after the ED, what happens when the tenure lapses? Who is taking over? Who are they grooming? Okay. The responsibility of the board is to ensure that there's a proper succession planning for key roles within the system. So the summary of what directors do on the board is to protect the stakeholder interest. Stakeholder is not just shareholders. Stakeholder includes vendors who would have worked for that company and they're expecting payment. Stakeholder includes the community where the company is situated, because they may be working in that community. Staff members are stakeholders. Okay, regulators are stakeholders in that company. So the stakeholders are large and wide. And so what the board of directors does is to actually represent and ensure and protect the interest of all stakeholders. So, like I said, they come 2, 3, 4, 5 times a year. And how do you achieve all this? It's by delegating to the executive management, led by somebody that is called the managing director. So let's go to duties of directors. Duties of directors. Anytime I have time to look at this again, I shake my head. And that's why it's important that when they invite you to sit on a board, don't just accept all board appointments. It's a status symbol. Yes, I'm a director, so I agree it's a status symbol. However, please look at the company you are going to, look at the board, look at the owners of that company, weigh their integrity, weigh the reputation that they have before you join the board. Because once you join, you can't say it is them. You're already part of them because you're on the board. So duties and liabilities of directors include acting in good faith and in the best interest of the company. Now, that is pregnant. Acting in good faith. Now, the good faith we are talking about is not your standard of good faith. It's the standard of the innocent bystander that is going to assess what has happened and say, no, this person was a thief. He's part of them. So in assessing good faith, you are going to be assessing with the objectivity tests of someone that was not part of that transaction, looking at it from outside to see, oh, this was objective. So you are required to act in a way that a third party reviewing what transpired to be able to say it was in the best interest of the company and it was in good faith. Even if a mistake was made, this was in good faith. There was no ulterior motive in doing this. Now, Section 3053 also makes it the obligation of directors to ensure that the environment in which they operate is not harmed or does not incur or no injury is inflicted on that environment by reason of the operations of that company. Further down, because organizers have told me to speak a bit about sustainability, I will towards the end of the session. So we'll come back to that. But what I want to take away from here is that even CAMA is already infusing sustainability obligations on directors inside the Act. And so whether we like it or not, people that think ESG is just a cost center, in a few years' time, you may just find out that you are burdened with a liability or risk that you never appreciated or even contemplated. So avoidance of conflict is a duty of a director, confidentiality, and then devoting time and attention necessary to properly discharge responsibilities. Now, you probably need to expand on this. So you may get 250, 300 pages. If you're on a committee, 2 or 3 committees, you may get 600 pages of documents every quarter. If you're a director in a mid-size or big firm, 600 pages from 2 or 3 committees, making 1,200 pages that you have to digest before you go to that meeting. So what you must do is to ensure that there is framework in place that makes you get those documents in time so they are able to digest it. Don't just receive those documents, just look at the executive summary and then say, okay, this is what the board is doing. As much as possible, can't get into details of that document because when the chips are down, management has already disclosed those things to you. You are the one that didn't pay attention to it. So if you don't have time to be on a board, please step aside because when the chips are down, you can't say it was them. You can't say I didn't know. Okay, the liability is strict liability. So another duty is the control environment, the internal audit, the chief risk officer, internal control, chief compliance officer. These are appointees of the company, but they are officers of the board. And how do you ensure that they do their work? Probably give them some independence. You ensure that they come in at the right grade so that they are able to stand on their feet and say, I insist that this is what is going to be. The chief financial officer, don't just get a neophyte of 2 years post-graduation and make that person chief financial officer. Let it be someone that is qualified, someone that has experience, someone that has seen sides in business so that this person can advise and can stand and say, I'm objective about this, what is going to happen and resist pressure. Now, what the board must also do is to enable these officers to be able to access members of the board, particularly board committee chairmen, where required, so that if they have concerns, those concerns are ventilated. Those concerns are not just swept under the carpet or overruled. Because if once you allow that, then you are able to get feelers from the board. You are able to get feelers from management before something that you can't control happens. Now, fiduciary, so there is also a fiduciary relationship with the company. So fiduciary, I will just define in terms of maybe standing as trustee, because they are supposed to you are in a superior position for the company to defend the shareholders. And that is where your liability comes in. That is where you are held accountable for whatever has happened to the board, because you are in a position where you are supposed to look after, in quotes, the interest of the stakeholders. And if something happens, they hold you liable for that. Now, so, like I said, that directors come 3, 4 times, 5 times, 6 if there's a crisis in a year to look at what transpired in the company every quarter, every other quarter. However, the directors remain ultimately responsible for the delegated duties. How do they control this? It goes back to the officers of the board, the company secretary, the chief compliance officer, the chief financial officer, the internal auditor. In fact, internal auditor is obliged to meet the chairman of the board audit or board risk committee before every committee meeting, where management is not and where the gentleman can unbundle any concern before that meeting, where the MD or the EDs will be in. So every quarter there's a meeting, and then maybe once or twice a year you have a meeting with external auditors where the MD and EDs are not present, and then they can speak freely to the directors. The idea is to get direct feel of what is happening at management level. Okay, and so that the board is comfortable that this company is not heading to disaster and the books are not being cooked. Because if you don't do all those things, then you may just find yourself sitting on a very, very hollow, container that can crumble any minute. Now, one of the skills that management will use is that they will delay documents, 500 or 600-page documents. They will delay it until like 3 or 4 days and begin to tell you that we are going to lose that contract, we are going to lose this opportunity. We know it came late, we are so sorry, but it has to be done. So you are not able to delve deep into those documents. You probably have to stand your ground and you say, well, if you thought it was important, you would have sent it earlier. I'm not taking it at the next meeting. Once directors won't accept, they will stop that. Surprises don't go well with directors. I've learned that over time. Surprises don't end well. It doesn't end well. Okay, so I think I spent enough time on that. So we just moved to criminal liability of directors. I've already spoken about this just to highlight this so that we understand. Diversion, I spoke about that that was part of the last slide. Secret profits. You brought a deal for the company, and then you prepared your own cuts into that deal. If you are found out, the law says you must refund that money to the company. You are influencing audits in a way. You must, you'll be held accountable for that. You already bankrupt and you hit that. If that is found out, you'll be held accountable for that. These are criminal liability. One of the boards I supported when I was like 2-3 years post-call, I was in Chambers and we had a nominee company. So the company bought an head office, and then we just discovered a lot of money was just going, and the board said that it should be audited. And they discovered that the chairman of the company had, through a third-party contractor, taken over the contract for the electrical installation of the company, the piping and all that. And all these things were assuredly done. So when we get to meetings, they'll be asking the MD will be saying we are working on it. He will be looking at he won't be able to open his mouth. And then behind the MD and the chairman, the director instituted an investigation, and they discovered that the chairman of the board was behind all the contracts for the company, but it was never disclosed. And that's, I must tell you that a 2-3-year-old individual that was company secretary of that kind of board, how do you think I felt when those thunder and fire began to rain down at the board meeting? I felt like disappearing, because these were giants. If I mention 2 names of the directors that were there at that time, most people on this call will recognize those individuals. A lot of them are dead now, but they were giants in those days in the industry, both in banking, both in contracting and construction in Nigeria. And despite that, the chairman still left all his vast empire, and still a company where he was chairman, where he was almost majority shareholder, he was still using third-party contractors to collect benefits from it. So this is criminal liability. So you don't think because somebody is very wealthy, he won't be interested. You may be lying to yourself. Every kobo matters to that kind of person. So for the executive directors, these are the delegates of the board. So strategy is very important. Liaison between executive management is important. Now, they are responsible for the human capital of the company. The buck stops on the table of the MD. So if there's attrition, if it's not a good place to work, then look no further than the MD. It's not the work of head of HODs. The MD is the one that's supposed to ensure that there is a good working environment. Now, it will pass that to several HODs and executives, yes, but it's body language, the policies that are in place, the zero tolerance for such things, it will come from him. It will come from him. And then the accuracy of those reports, it will come from him. Now, the chief marketer of the company, I worked a long time ago in a company where my MD was always in the company, and I knew I was in trouble. The MD was always in. If you go there 24/7, he's in his office. Other people were the ones marketing. The chief marketer of the company is the managing director. When the managing director is in specifics, begins to argue figures and whatever with HR, argue figures with financial control, there's a problem, because that's why we have executives, supervising those areas. His own job is the helicopter view. Okay, the strategy. How are we going to achieve? Who do I need to delegate? Who do I need to empower to achieve these things? Monitor those indicators. That's what they do. Monitor the indicators. Now, I listened to Warren Buffett a long time ago, and he was asked how many times he sees the MDs of his company. He said once a year. He doesn't go back there until the end of the year, because at the beginning of the year, they will sit down and agree the key objectives. And then it will monitor those key objectives. As long as you're meeting those key objectives, not interested in coming to your, but if you don't meet them, that's where the problem is. So also give people indicators. This is what we've agreed on. And monitor those indicators. That's your job. Getting into specifics is not your job. So the MD is supposed to be the brand manager, the chief marketer, the strategy person, the face of the company, opening doors, getting business in. So when your MD is totally in the office 24/7, then is a problem. Allocation of resources is what the executive management does. Effective control system, they are the ones that would, yes, the policies are there. They have administrative responsibility for everybody working in that company. That's what executive management does. So what do EDs do? They support the MD to achieve the agreed goals, implement directives, and then they are part of the succession plan of the company. So we go to board structure. So, I already mentioned this earlier. The chairman as the head of the board and the non-executive directors, they are part of the structure. Now, I've not expatiated on the committees at all. So the board committees those are subgroups formed by the board to enable it dispense its obligations. So what those committees do is they are specialized, they are focused on particular areas, and support, they are considered by people that have expertise in that area. So the common ones are the board governance committee, board governance, nominations and remuneration committee, you have the board audit and risk committee. Now, depending on the nature of the business of the company, then you now have other specialized. It could be credit committee, it could be investment committee, it could be whatever the business of the company is, but the standard ones, audit and risk, that you must have, governance, nominations, and nomination you must have, and then you can form other committees, finance and general purpose, however, to fit your business. What these committees do, they will have a chairman, so they are a replica of the board. So members of the board will be assigned to those committees based on their expertise. And so what they do, because the board don't have time, what they do is to go into more details about recommendations and reports coming to the board. Now, at board meetings, I don't expect that you spend a lot of time at board meetings. In my experience, once a board meeting is going more than 3 hours, there is a crisis. If the committee is doing the job well, board meetings should be recommendations from the committee. People that are not members of that committee would have seen the papers. Comments from them is either a go or a delay, a decline. I work with a board where once is more than 2.5 hours I know we have a problem that day. There is a crisis. And we were discussing trillions. Now, that board was full of MDs of banks. By the time they are spending 1.5, 2 hours, their phones are already ringing. Somebody is calling them from Kano, somebody is calling them from London. So they don't have time. Once you're even presenting as management and taking, they will say, please, we read. Can we take it as read? So go to page, go to page, go to page. We don't agree, we don't. And you will discuss billions in foreign currency under 1.5, 2 hours, and they're out of the system. Now, what also you have on that board is that they hold you accountable. I will give an example one day, and it was just cost to income ratio. The cost to income ratio indicator they gave us was 25 to 28%. So if we have a challenge, we can get to like 30% cost to income ratio. When we calculated for that quarter, it was 32%. And my managing director's blood pressure rose over 180. All of us were very, very happy. We asked him to go home. Please go home, sir, because he just started sweating. Go home, sir, go home, sir, go home, sir, go home, sir. Now, we now have to sit down with the chief financial officer. What happened? And then we were able to work out the cost that was not making sense. And then we had to quickly delay some costs that we wanted to expend that for that quarter to the next quarter. So we got to 29 point something% before we got to board meeting. And then when we go to board meeting, I won't mention the name of the director, known, has a global company now, was one of my directors. And he said, MD, you're on 29%. In what world? 29%? What did you do? Are you so inefficient? How are you 29%? What are you spending money on? You know? And when we finished that board meeting, I didn't because the MD understood the kind of board he had. These are people that will hold you accountable for whatever you are doing. The MD understood the kind of board he was facing, and that's why I developed high blood pressure. I now developed my own after the meeting because I didn't anticipate what will happen. You know, it was in the Yorubas will say it is the person that has used magic water to wash eyes that is afraid. He had already washed his eyes. I didn't know that there was water to wash eyes at all. It was after the meeting that my own fear descended on me. Now, we got to 29.5 and we faced this. What if we had gone there with 32? So a board is supposed to hold you accountable to indicators. Indicator is 25 to 28%. You go out of it, you must explain it. Now, I've seen other instances where people were at 50 and nobody bothered. You know, people are at 60 and everybody was still laughing. So that goes back to the board. Now, committees are where they will now drive down and find out why those indicators are getting warped. What solution you must have, okay? What recommendation must go to the board? Are there resources that are required? Is there somebody that must be fired? You know, because I've been on 2 boards where a managing director got into a meeting, and at the end of that meeting, he didn't have a job. Now, a managing director gets all the perks, yes. However, he's the only person that can enter a board meeting and come out without a job. What we just hear is that, please, MD, can you please excuse us? Company secretary, can you please excuse us? And then they discuss for like 30 minutes. They call the company secretary in. That's the first person they call in. They will say, company secretary, write this down. The MD is hereby relieved of his position with immediate effect. All articles of the kidney so and so in his hand should be dropped. And then they call the MD. We say, MD, we are sorry. At this point, let's part as friends. We don't have confidence that you can steer the affairs of this company. And just like that, MDs don't go on PIPO. I hope you know. It's people, when you're aspiring to be MD, understand what you're aspiring to be. And that's why they get all the perks. They are the only ones that can enter a meeting and come out without a job. Others will still be put on PIP. Let's try him. Let's send it to another department. Let's see whether MD can go in and come out without a job. And I've seen that happen. And my legs, the way my leg was shaking under the table, you would think I'm the one that they were asking to go. Now, so that's the ultimate responsibility of the MD. You carry that responsibility. You carry that risk. You carry that obligation. So also executive director, but they rarely get it like the managing director. The managing director is the first victim when there is strike down by the board, because he is the ultimate delegate of the board. He's the one that's supposed to get it done. So there is a strike on the company, there is a governance failure, there's a fraud on the company. The MD is the first person that the directors is, because you are our delegates. You are the one that's supposed to ensure the assurance functions in the company work. So as you are going, the CRO is going, these are extremely delicate positions. Forget the Prado that they drive. At times they're in that Prado and their body is very hot because of what they are going to face. So while you are looking at Prado, understand that that Prado brings a lot of grief at times. So the executive director, the role of the company secretary is just to facilitate the work of the board, information flow between board and management and all that. And then the shareholders, like I said, the shareholders are the equity owners. They are the ones that bankrolled the business. Yet, they are not in management of the business. And then their desires, their aspirations can conflict with that of the company. So if you don't manage your shareholders well, you get to an AGM and they want to sack the entire board. They want to come in and then inflict their own internal audit. They want to bring forensic auditors. So for this particular category of stakeholders, you must manage them well. You must manage them well. And that is why you see companies having pre-AGM dinner. That pre-AGM dinner is not just for fanfare. It's for directors to mingle with shareholders, to explain what is in the audited annual reports, to explain thorny issues, to sell the strategy of management, to make them understand where directors see the company, management sees the company. And by the time the meeting is holding the next day, you just see them, we have confidence in the managing director. That confidence did not just drop. It's because somebody has spoken to them and conveyed and made them see, okay, the strategy. So those, that is the board structure. And then we move into expectations. Now, I said that the directors come 3, 4, 5 times a year, but they have expectations. Now, in the intervening period that they are not there, what do they expect to see? What do they want from management? So you have to manage agitation of share stakeholders, okay? Understand the role. Now, so the distinction between the role and parts of shareholders, the board and management is very important. Shareholder power is at the AGM where they give approval or they decline. It's not in the day-to-day business of the company. Yeah, there are some rights under Kama to come in and look at documents and all that, but they can't tell the MD what to do. But their power, if you don't manage them well, is at the AGM, especially when you are a PLC. You don't want a rowdy AGM. You don't want everybody shouting, start the MD. So you have to manage them. But between the board and management is where you see a lot of friction. Somebody asked me a while back and said, how do you handle a chairman that wants to control how the business of the company is run? And that can be tricky. That can be tricky. Maybe a way we used when we were much younger and we were a bit cavalier is to speak to a regulator to say, when you are talking to the board of directors, you have to scare them. We are much younger than we are just rascally then, A regulator that's your friend will just talk to chairman and say, with the minutes we saw that you are doing this and doing that is not the role of chairman. And chairman sits back and pushes back and say, there's some measure of fear for a regulated entity. But if your chairman is someone that is bold, call out the bluff of everybody and then it becomes worse. Now, you have to put in a framework. In that framework, governance framework, there's something you call responsibility matrix. In that responsibility matrix, you define what the powers of the board is, what the powers of management is, and then if shareholders are required, you define it. What that does is that, and you make sure everybody reads, you present that, there's company secretary will give an executive summary, so everybody is aware of it. And so you can put up the boundaries. However, there's an exception. If the board is pushing for something repeatedly and management does not hacking to it, then the board will come into management. And I give an example. If there is a cost issue, you repeatedly overrun your costs, and the board is pushing, and management is not doing anything, the board can set up an ad hoc committee to look at costs. And at that time, they can come in and sack an entire cadre of people. they can look in and say, this particular project they are doing, stop with immediate effect. This vendor is over-invoicing, stop with immediate effect. However, once that crisis is averted, the board has to go back to supervisory because that crisis has been resolved. So, two things, it can be an overbearing board. However, at times it may be justified because there's a crisis and they need to resolve something. Don't forget, they hold ultimate responsibility if anything happens to that company. And so do not, okay, judge them when they come in to resolve those things because their name, their reputation, even their freedom at times may be on the line. So they expect that you do it, but if you don't do it, they may come in to do it. So regulatory compliance, they don't want to hear that you not filed your returns or FCC is looking for the MD. All these are brand eroders and some, their friends will be calling them, but you are a director so and so. Have you noticed that they arrested the MD of that company? It means that you are on the board of a company whose MD is at EFCC, which means we don't know what you are doing on that board. Only God knows that this Rolls Royce that you bought, this Rolls Royce, even maybe it's customers' money they used to buy Rolls Royce for you. It could be your money for whatever it is, but as far as they are concerned, this Rolls Royce you are driving is suspect. So it's a reputational issue for directors, and they expect that you do it well. Insider trading, all these things, they expect that you will resolve it. Performance management, they also expect that you will resolve. You know, one of the greatest evil I've seen done is between senior manager and below. If you work in an FI, senior manager and below appraisals are not, they don't come to the full board. It stops at management level. It's only AGMs and above top management that go to the board for review. But senior manager and below, the kind of evil that happens in a toxic environment, you don't want to know. However, how can the board find this out? Is to ask questions. Whistleblowing platform, okay? Having interface with members of top management, listening to what they are not saying, asking questions, and then watching their body language. You know, they will, for example, a company secretary will never report, at least the professional one, will never report his MD. But an experienced company secretary will report his MD without reporting his MD. But it takes an experienced director to pick it up. I'm not the one that will be telling you that one here today. Some of my directors may even be here. Anyway, recognition and protection of the power of the company is important. They expect that. The going concern status of the company is important, Now, emotional intelligence also is important. Are we able to empathize with our staff? Look, I worked in a place where the common joke is that if our Oga says we had a building that was 9 floors and then had a mezzanine on top, that if our Oga says that the way we can make money is that we should go to the mezzanine and jump down and money will come. My colleague I was talking to said, he said I will jump. That was the level of trust. And then the reason he said I will jump is that he believes that there will be a safety net before he gets to the ground floor that will catch him. That was the level of trust. By the time management gets to the level where people want to jump from the top of a building and not care about their safety because they believe management would have thought about it, you have done the ultimate thing that the board expects. You've connected to your workforce, you are motivating them, you are balancing them, there's a career pattern, there's expectation that is met, you have trust within the system. Where there is trust deficit, you have failed the board as management. I need to move fast because my time is going. These are just pre and post meeting protocol for people that will be looking at board papers and all that. So this is what you expect. This is what you expect. The agenda will be part of what the what's it called? The responsibility matrix would have taken care of, because it will tell you what should come to the board. Reports about ABC should come to the board. Approvals that the board must give ABC. Management can only give ABC. This is where their limit is. That responsibility matrix would have taken care of all those ones. So if you have all those ones in place, what is coming to the board? Now, I have a video, hope it plays, and then that video will talk about having an efficient and effective meeting. So, like I said, the company secretary is integral to holding effective and efficient meetings, but under the supervision of the MD as the responsibility officer of the board. I keep telling my colleagues that once you present a minutes to the board and it's taking more than 10 minutes to read your minutes, even if it's 50 pages, then there's a problem. Because your directors must have seen those minutes before the board meeting. And so whatever they have as comments should have come. And so it's not a board meetings where you have like 30 or 40 comments on the minutes. That should have been done before then. So a minute should not take more than 5-10 minutes. So those are things that you pick up as company secretary. So to preserve the independence of the board, I've talked about that governance framework at length. What you must also do is to look at the nature. The people that you invite to the board are extremely important. Proving integrity, substance and reputation. People that value their reputation more than the money you are giving them, however high the director fee is. People ready to say, I cannot take this any longer, and they walk away. One of my directors I work with, chairman of the company I work with, he just called me one weekend and says, Alawusa, please, I need your help. And I said, sir, go ahead. And he painted a scenario to me. And I said, no, sir. No, I'm much wiser now. When people ask me such questions, I begin to ask for the context. But when he asked me that question, I just began to reel out. And he said, thank you. And by Wednesday of the following week, I heard on the news that he resigned from a company that he was chairman. I said, so this is the reason why chairman called me on Saturday. He just got feedback on what the position should be and found that he couldn't be part of that and resigned. So those were men that no matter how much you pay them, their name, the reputation they've built over the years, okay, there's nothing you can pay them that will amount to, that will be a trade-off for that reputation. Those are the kind of people you should put on your board. Those are people that will tell the MD to his face that it is wrong and we won't be part of this. People that will tell the shareholders that we won't be part of this, will walk away. And once you have those kind of people on your board, the independence of that board is preserved. So people should be majority in NED or INED position so that people don't have any material interest in the company. They can walk away. They just want to be objective. And so I'm rushing now because I need to close out. Maybe we can take something on sustainability. So hopefully these slides will be made available by the organizer so that you can look at it later on. The last thing I want to mention is effective whistleblowing. Please, as directors, ensure that you have a portal that will preserve the anonymity of people, either phone call, website, whatever it is, and then the internal structures that will support that. Is it going to the internal auditor, the chief compliance officer? You cannot report the MD to MD. That kind of portal should not be on MD's desk. So you are reporting MD to MD. So it should be on, and some people use external auditors. It may not be the auditor of the company because the whistleblowing may even be against the auditor of the company. It could be an external audit firm or a law firm that the company or the board will engage to host that website. So anything on the website of the company, the back end goes to the mail of the principal partner of the law firm or whatever. The idea is that it's independence. You can save your life, save your reputation with this portal because the kind of things that will come, okay, yeah. I worked in a company where we just sat down on one day and then the chairman just led the group into the company and says, I received the chairman of the board, who is not a member of staff, just came in and said, we received a petition and then we brought auditors to come and look. All of us were looking at it. They were with us for like one of the most harrowing 2.5 weeks of my life because they shook every table. They shook every paper. By the time they finished, all of us were drained and they didn't find anything. Yes, you may say it's a waste of time, but that is the power of whistleblowing. And if you know there's a whistleblowing process, you'll be more careful in your duties. And that's important. So I tried to, the next slide is talking about emerging governance issues. So I was told to speak about sustainability by the organizers. While I will not delve into details because I don't think you need the details because we are not sustainability professionals. However, as a director, what you need to know is that the liability for environmental and social risk governance is expanding in Nigeria. Under best practice is expanding, but in Nigeria is gaining ground. Now, if you look at the Climate Change Act, that is 2021 Act, and I'm only going to be speaking about the introduction to this act. Introduction talks about how this department will be financed. And one of the key finance sources is fines and penalties that they will be received from companies. Now, so when you form a law and one of your finance sources is fines, and penalties that we impose on companies, know that by the time these people gain traction, a lot of companies will have a serious problem. Now, and what are those fines? Your effluent, okay? This fine, your generator fuels, these fines, how you are affecting your environment. A lot of companies are not taking this into consideration at all. And by the time this department comes to full operation, they have appointed a DG now. If you look at the law, it's not even clear where you're going to file your returns here. So we file it inside our annual reports now. But by the time they gain ground, not even filing the returns on ESG is already a penalty in your annual reports. And if their source of funding is penalty and fines, you can be sure that you are already incurring penalty and fines in 2021. If you don't file those things by 2025, that's 4 years penalty already for you. So apart from this, SEC is also gaining ground. They're also asking capital market operators to file those returns. So we are filing as part of annual reports now. Section 305 of CAMA that I mentioned talks about how you affect your environment. These things are coming to a head. Now, this is how it started with banks, with Access Bank, I think, leading at that time, and then it gained ground and it became a liability. You may say, I'm not a regulated company, but the Climate Change Act, you don't talk about regulation, you just say companies. And maybe surprised a letter will just come to your company and say, pay 20 million for failure to file your returns for 3-4 years. So if you are a director, what should you look out for? So the SDGs, there are about 17 of them, and you cannot adopt the 17. So you just look for the ones that pertain to your business. So if I'm allowed to speak about what we've done in ARM in the last 3-4, I think we started in 2021, the last 3-4 years, what we've done is we've been able to establish a framework, sustainability framework for all our businesses, even from the holding company. I was fortunate to lead that initiative, got all the approvals, and then I got somebody in who's an expert in ESG that was able to handhold us, and then it has become operational now. For each business, we have a checklist that you have to look at. You have to, whatever investment you have to do, you have to assess that investment against the checklist. Now, the challenge that you have, if you are looking at a client that is facing oil and gas, for example, and one of the majors, and it says, manage my separation fund of, say, 50 billion or 100 billion. And that's investment or deposit coming into your business. However, before the money comes in, they have an oil spill on the Niger Delta that they've not cleaned up. ESG says, mark that company, or at best, don't do business with them, or you will justify that business. Now, if we have people that are RMs on this call or business managers, if you listen to an ESG manager saying you should not do business, collect 100 billion that's going to stay with you for the next 20 years because there's an oil spill, you will say, am I the one that spilled the oil? Please, Egbami, what is my own business? They are working on it now. Am I the one that spilled the oil? So there's always that exchange between business and ESG. They see it as a cost, but the way it's going, before the end of this year or next year, it may move from a cost to a necessity for business to do. But as a director, what do you need to do? So you have to ensure that this framework is in place. You have to ensure that the structure to manage and supervise the framework is in place. You have to change your mindset as a board member and stop looking at ESG as a cost or an hindrance to an enabler, because there will be a time where the competitive nature of the business that we are all facing, all of us have the same qualifications and performance. What will tip it in your favor is what you have in ESG. You know, ARM has a lab, ARM labs, where what we do is to support startups, tech startups. And someone that was going to get $50,000 award stood up one day and was asking us what our footprint was in ESG. And I was saying, look at my life. This person wants to collect $50,000 from me. And he's asking me, before he collects my money, what my footprint is in oil and ESG. But because it was being televised, I had to behave myself. I stood up humbly and explained what we've done. And then he began to clap. And that was when it was comfortable to collect my money. It's what the world has turned to. Okay, so as a director, your mindset must change. You establish the framework, you create a reporting structure. So which means every quarter you want to see the footprint, ESG footprint developments, implementation status, and what the businesses are doing about it. And then you agree the deliverables and monitor the deliverables, and then you ensure that there is like an ecosystem. So in ARM too, we have like 15 people that are qualified as professionals in sustainability. I think, yeah, we have like 15 people. So we have champions spread over the businesses. These are people who look out for ESG in those businesses. And some of the things we've done, I said that you can't adopt all the 17 SDGs. You just choose the one that relates to your business. So in ARM, we've chosen like 7. No poverty, no hunger, a decent work environment. So I can't remember everything offhand, but we have a farm, and that farm we joined IITA, and what we did was to get high yielding seeds for the community where we have the farm. So as we are planting in our farm, the farms around us, we are giving them high yielding seeds to plant. And then when those plants get to the maturity, what we do is the people that we are selling to, we also aggregate with them and we help them sell so that they get higher yield. So that goes to the no hunger, no poverty. You had the GLE ARM Young Talent Award where you support tech founders. You have the ARM Young Talent program where you get interns to come in, you pay them salary for like 12 weeks, and then they have hands-on experience. So those are some of the things that we do. Now, I must not fail to speak about gender balance. My former CEO that left in June was female, Jumoke Ogundare. And within management, you ensure that you almost have a 50-50 split, a gender balance. Now, to be selfish, what we found out is women are rarely moved by an additional 1 million from a competitor. What they look out for is if they are able to close early, if you have a crèche, if you are empathetic about if their children are ill and they say, okay, just go and stay and take care of your child. You can come back tomorrow, or you can come in from 9 p.m. You can close by 3. Those are the things that move women. And then we discovered that key roles that were held by women are more sustainable than men, while not even pushing as hard as men. So before a guy stays there for like 2 or 3 years, he say no. But women are just more, what they are looking at, their considerations are a bit different from the considerations of men. And we found that very, very useful. And I must say, if you want something done in detail and done well, put a woman there and you get it done. Hopefully, I'm able to play this, and then I can close and ask. Please let me know if you had that video.
Very well.
Great. Okay, so let me share it again. It's going to be talking about effective board meetings.
The relationship between the board and the management team is just that. It's a relationship. And I think where it sometimes falls apart is when that relationship starts to break down, or you start to treat it as more of a business meeting. So a lot of, I think, the advice around how to prep for a meeting ties to that relationship aspect. You're going to want to make sure that you know who your board members are. You need to know what they care about.
I think the most critical elements of the relationship between a CEO and board director are around development of mutual respect and trust.
Yeah.
And it builds over time. But like every relationship, business or non-business, it happens one-on-one. It doesn't happen in a group setting. Many of the aspects that will drive a good board meeting are established well in advance of the board meeting itself. I think it's very helpful when a CEO sets an expectation for all board members right at the beginning that we will send you out the information in adequate time for you to read it, but we go in on the morning of the board meeting expecting that you have read it. And that's It's a small but very powerful point, and it makes for much greater efficiency on the day of a board meeting.
Before the board meeting, there's definitely some tricks of the trade to get the board members more engaged, and also an opportunity for management to engage with the board. A lot of companies do board dinners the night before. I found it particularly effective because if there's a thorny issue you want to just get on the table, it's a nice way to do that in an informal setting. Surprises don't end well in board meetings. It's never going to give you the outcome that you want.
The way I feel about the board pack, particularly for an early stage company, is that they don't have people who are full-time engaged in putting this together. The CEO and indeed the board should be as pragmatic as possible in terms of determining what goes in the pack. And the ideal pack will be largely composed of materials that the company is using themselves on a week-to-week, day-to-day, month-to-month, whatever it is. Sometimes it takes a number of board meetings before the package has been set. No board pack looks perfect at the first board meeting, but 3 board meetings in, you've probably gotten into a place where, again, you can take it from there and it's consistent from that point on.
I think to keep the board meeting on time is pretty critical.
I've been in one board in particular, I remember, where they had a ban on phones. And it took us a while as a board to coalesce around that. But actually, it's a very good rule. What you want to have is energy and focus around the issues that you care most about as the CEO. And I think setting the table right at the beginning of the day, here's what I'm happy about, here's what I'm concerned about, here are the 3 or 4 things that I want to be able to take away from today. I'm going to try and get you out of here by 4 o'clock. Is there anybody that doesn't work for? Because if it doesn't, that's fine. We'll work around it. But I want to make sure I hit all of these things while everyone's in the room.
Most people after a long board meeting want to
Rush
leave. They want to leave.
Yeah.
But the follow-up is important, I think, for a couple of reasons. One, it allows a management team to clarify anything that might have been misunderstood in board meetings. But I think board members also appreciate the follow-through because it makes them feel important and their input feel important if there's something promised.
That actually, let's, yeah. So there was something I missed. There was something I missed, and I will just take that because I think I've just actually overstayed my time. Okay, and it's the third point here, and it's a circular that we got about 2 weeks ago from SEC, and that circular is talking about a tenure limit for directors of CMOs, and then there's an encouragement in that circular that even if you are not regulated by SEC, best practice will say, please adopt this circular. So it now gives a 12-year limit for directors that have been within an affiliated number of companies for 12 years, then they should exit after 12 years. And then for others, 10 years. So what this is going to affect is people that have been in companies for like 20-something, 30 years. It means that you have to exit from that company, and it was with immediate effect. So by the time you have the next round of SEC examination, they'll be looking out for this. Now, to just wrap it up, I go back to my quotation and I look at Steve Covey, and he says, what you do is far more important than what you say. What that means for me is that no matter the policy you've put in place, no matter the documents you have showing that you are a governance-oriented board, is what you do that matters. Even if you don't have half of those documents in place and you are still a work in progress, but your culture is governance-focused, you are better than a company that has all the policies you can think of, but nothing is being done. So the challenge of leadership is to be strong, but not rude, be kind, but not weak, be bold, but not bully, be thoughtful, but not lazy. Be humble but not timid. Be proud but not arrogant. Have humor but without folly. Thank you, everyone. And I will take questions now if there are any.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Adewuyi. This was indeed a very educative and detailed presentation. The information you have provided on corporate governance and board leadership. In fact, if you check the chat room, is brimming with so many feedback. Someone said, I love Mr. Adewuyi's delivery, funny but yet serious. And Mrs. Adeyemi commented, which is supported by so many people in the chat room, that this is an excellent delivery. Thank you very much, Mr. Adewuyi. So we are so grateful for your time, and we thank you for the delivery this afternoon. There are quite a number of questions, but just before we go into questions, I would assume we have a number of people who would want to speak and raise their hands. So please feel free to use the raise hand feature to ask your questions verbally. I will take as many as I can. But just before that, Mr. Adewuyi, we have some questions that had already been sent in. I'll just take one or two, then we'll go into some live. We'll take some feedback. I can see two hands up already. The very first question is, what is the difference between executive and non-executive chairman? And I have a similar question saying, can the company secretary also wear the hat of a non-executive director? If you can take both together. Sir.
Sorry, I didn't get that. Can the company secretary do what?
Also wear the hat of a non-executive director.
Okay, so if we just go to the code, I will just answer that directly. You don't have executive chairman any longer. The role of the chairman and chief executive must be separate under the code. And so in days of executive vice chairman, those days are gone. So you are either non-executive or executive. You can't combine both. You can't be on the board as chairman and then be executive. No. But you see, a lot of smaller companies that are one-man businesses still do that, but they're not regulated by anybody. So probably doesn't matter. However, once you want to comply with best practice, you have to separate those two offices. Now, for a company secretary not being the person company secretary can be the executive director. You can't be non-executive director, except you are non-executive in another company. So if somebody comes to, I should come and be an INED on the board. Well, subject to my company agreeing to that, I can be an INED on that company, but I cannot be INED or NED on my company and be company secretary. The best I can be is executive director, company secretary on my board. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. There's another person asking for clarity on the difference between non-executive director and independent non-executive director.
Okay, it's just their stake in the company. For a non-executive director, you can be 50% shareholder, my majority shareholder of that company, and still be a non-executive director. But for an INED, you cannot have material interest in that company. You're supposed to be independent, because what you are supposed to do is to bring objectivity to the board. You don't have any agenda, you don't have any interest in that board, except the proper running of the business. So that's the difference between them. It's ownership. Level of ownership, that's the difference.
All right, thank you very much, sir. So I would allow Iveren to speak. If you can unmute, please go ahead, Iveren, then I'll come to Ifeoma. Okay, HQ, please, can you help yes, go ahead, Iveren, we can hear you now.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
That was a very good delivery. I enjoyed every bit of it.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. My question is, how do we set remuneration for directors, non-executive and executive?
Okay. So in my experience, that question has been one of the most sensitive ones you have to deal with on the board, because you are dealing with personalities, really. And so you want to, at times, get an independent view of now. See, in my experience as a company secretary, directors don't want so much. Directors want to be respected. Directors want to be seen. Directors want to be heard. Directors want to be valued, and directors want to be well remunerated. So what I've done over the years is that every year or every 2 years, I get a survey done. And that survey does not mean directors' fee will be increased. It just allows me to see what's going on in the markets. And so you have companies like DCSL, Ms. Adeyemi is there, that's part of what they do. They can help you look at the industry and then give you an opinion on what other companies are collecting. Now, if you can't afford a Mr. Adeyemi, for example, negotiation, yes, but if you can't afford a Mr. Adeyemi, for example, by the time you become company secretary, I expect that you have some network. And then that network enables you to call between 5 and 20 of your colleagues to say, send me your director remuneration. And then you have to do that survey yourself. It means that you have to plot company A to company 1 to 20, and then compile what they earn as director's fee, and then compare to what you have. And then you see where your company is. Either you are average, you are high, or you are low. And you can use that to actually speak to directors. However, if you have technocrats on your board, you can't escape an independent survey. No matter you tell them, I've spoken to 20 companies, say no, go and talk to a Big Four, go and talk to Ms. Adeyemi, and then they will come in and present that report. And on the basis of that report, the board takes a decision. So how you determine is surveys. Now, for executive directors, you just have to, you have the HCM department, you just have to market to market. Because if you don't market to market, you either have the dregs of the market as your staff, or you have everybody leaving. So depending on the aspirations of your company, and then the remuneration profile and the culture in your company. Some companies say you want to be the first 75% of the industry, some say 50 percentile of the industry, depending on what your remuneration policy is. And then that reflects how much you are going to be paying your executive. So you mark to market. When you market to market, please bear in mind what your aspiration is, because that will determine the kind of staff that you are attracting to the company. So I think I've answered a question.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. So I would allow Ifeoma to talk now, if you're available. Please go ahead, we can hear you now.
Hello?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Alawusa.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm not sure we can hear you, Ifeoma.
Yes, I can hear.
With you for a while, for a very long while. Hello?
Sorry, I missed you for a few seconds. Yeah, can you start all over so that I don't miss your question?
Okay, I said thank you so much for sharing those insights.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I said this is Ifeoma Abidoye, and
Hey, Ifeoma. Oh, great. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, sir. I
Yeah.
said I've been privileged to work with you for a very long time. And
Oh,
I see you
great.
in your very sharp suit and smile, walking confidently and not aware of the fire that you have been going through until recently when you started sharing your stories, and we've been learning from you and even today as well. And so I have two questions. One is, how are you able to, balance that role without letting the fire show when you're carrying it out, your role, and without people knowing what you're going through? Because I mean, we used to gist a lot, and I never knew all these things were happening until when you started sharing those stories recently. And then secondly, I know that because of the role you have, you will know when people say maybe an executive director or an MD or an AGM is going to lose their job soon, based on private conversations that happen. And I'm sure maybe one or two of those times over the years, you may have had to sit and hear someone that is very close to you going to lose a job, and maybe you think they didn't even deserve it. So how do you balance that moral obligation, not telling them, and also the moral obligation to your friend, and also obligation to your company? When you have those kind of conflicts, how do you manage things like that on your own?
Well, these are sensitive questions, Ifeoma, and I will start from the second question. The company secretary carries a vow of silence, and it can be a lot. I was acting company secretary in a bank long ago, and there was an EMC meeting, ESCO, not even board meeting, EMC meeting, and they were looking at, before the stock market crash, a lot of people took money from the bank and bought shares, but this was the CRO of the bank. So when the shares moved and there was a lot of room in value between the amount she borrowed and the value of those shares, she collected more money to buy more shares. But when the fall came, the shares that she had, okay, could not secure the exposure that she had. There was a gap. And so this was a board that came in by CBN and Fiat to revive the bank. And so they were reviewing all these things. You know that everyone that was in that situation was excused except the CRO, because the CRO's job is to manage risk. And they said that if the CRO was unable to manage the risk and was reckless, because she should have known that to borrow more money, should have put shares that will match the value of your exposure, or you don't do it at all. That if the shares had fallen based on what she had bought, not collected more money, there wouldn't have been a problem. And because of that, she was asked to go. Now, this was around 9 p.m. at night. And the MD turned to me and said, Alawusa, if this leaks before the CRO is informed, I hold you responsible. And I'm going to give you two stories, another one, but this is the first one. I'll hold you responsible. See little me. Now, it's not facing the EDs that are there who could be friends of the CRO. It's facing me, the company secretary, that if anything happens, I'm the one that will be held responsible. So that same night, I went back to my table, typed the extract, took it to the head of HR. Fortunately, it's a bank now. We were still working at 10 o'clock. God help us at that time. He was still in the office. I didn't give it to his secretary. I took it inside, he stamped, he acknowledged for me. I took back my copy. The following morning was the credit committee of the bank. And this lady came in, a CRO, was giving people orders. I was looking at her like, and she was my very good friend. I was looking at her like this. MD was there, the EDs that already sacked that, they were there, and they didn't tell her. She was still giving instructions, meet me in my office by next week. This will not be accepted or tolerated. And I was looking at her that, hey, this woman is already sacked though. So around 4 p.m. after they finished credit committee, the head of HR walked to her and told her, leave now, I want a letter of resignation, or you get terminated. And that's how she left. This was 2009 or so. I've not spoken to her since then till now. And she was my very good friend. So a company secretary carries the oath of secrecy, whether you like it or not. You just have to be praying for your friend. There is nothing you can do, because if you open up, then you have a problem. Another instance, my MD was leaving and they were deciding the benefits of the MD. And so we worked on until like 6 p.m. And then the directors left and I went back to my office. Immediately I go to my office, the MD came in. He said, Alawusa, what did they approve for me? I said, nothing has been approved, sir. Because, you know, the board governance committee is going to make recommendation to the board. Until the board approves it, there's no recommendation, there's no approval. I said, Alawusa, don't give me technicalities. What did the board approve for me? I said, oh God, they didn't approve anything, no. Now, he said, hey, I know you are going to say this, or this old school company secretary is what he called me. That he mentioned the director's name, who was a member of the governance committee, came to my office after the meeting. He told me what the directors approved for me. And I said, his director is the one that knows. I don't know what they approved for you. Do you know that by the time I got home, the ED called me. The Alawusa, this is not right. How can you approve? So I said, okay, they approve. So how can you approve this much for MD? What will others get? And he decided to call the chairman of the governance committee to protest. The following morning, I get a call at 8 o'clock. Chairman of governance committee says I should come and see him. So I got there. I said, Alawusa, why did you disclose what we did? So I said, I don't understand, sir. He said, why is the ED calling me to complain about what I'm giving the MD? That you are the only staff that was in that meeting because MD was not there, HR was not there, you are the only staff there. I said, I don't know, sir, but you may need to look inwards amongst members of that committee to find out where the leak came from. At that point, he stepped back. Now, what if MD, is it not my mother's prayer? What if MD had not even disclosed to me that so and so person had told him? How would I know that there is even a leak? So at that time, he said, well, I had to call you because I told the members of the committee that I trust you. You are not the one that will deliver that. That's where reputation comes back in. If you don't have that reputation with the directors, how will they trust you behind you? So he had to call me as a matter of formality to confirm and tell them it's not Alawusa. So imagine if it was me and governance committee chairman was calling me. I don't have a job again. That's how career will end, suddenly without plan. So a company secretary carries oath of secrecy. Now, on being able to balance all this without letting the fire show, that's the specialty of the company secretary. You come out, it's like a pastor. You go to church, you dress well. The fire is under your belt, but you keep encouraging people from the altar. Fire is burning behind you, but your designer jacket will cover the fire. They will only see your face and the front of your jacket. The fire behind you, God will take care of it. That is, I've sat in situations where they're determining what will happen to my own career, and I'm in that meeting. There's nothing you can do about it. You can only beg. Okay, you can only beg. So it's the lot of the company secretary. You carry it well. That's why you must get a mature person for that role, because it can be hot, but it can also be very rewarding. You know.
Thank you so much. At this point, I must say, well done, sir. You're really doing an amazing job. Well done.
Thank you.
I have quite a number of questions here, so I'll see as many as I can batch together, sir. So someone is asking on shadow director. Say, can a shadow director be sued because of the company? Another question says, what gives a shadow director power? Is it political power? What does he have hold over the company? So clarity on shadow director.
Yeah, it's political power. The shadow director owns the company. It could be in several shell companies, but ultimately the shadow director owns the company. And the people that matter in the company know that he owns the company. So everybody behaves when he speaks. Yes, you know that what Kama says, that if you hold people out or they behave in a way that they give instructions, okay, then that person is a director. So you can sue. But we are suing for the action of the company, not for the action of the director. So you are suing against the company, because that you can come out and say I'm not, and you can't prove it because nobody can show what he has done, but you can sue the company for that action. But it's political power, ownership power, political power. That's what they have.
Okay. Is there also any difference between the de facto director and the shadow director? Another
De facto
question.
it's just knowledge. People know de facto director. People don't know shadow director.
Okay.
It's the unseen hand behind. You are suspecting, but you are not sure. But de facto, all of you know that our guy has come. All of you know de facto director.
Okay. So I have questions I'm going to ask you at once, sir. Another question is, how does one deal with an overbearing chairman as a board member, CEO, or company sec? Another question is, why can't a bankrupt person be a director? Under what circumstances can a previously bankrupt person be appointed or reinstated as a director?
I'm not sure there is a tenure limit for bankrupt, because what the law says is that because if a company has gone bankrupt under you, or you've not been able to manage your affairs, why should we allow you to manage the affairs of another company? That is the reasoning behind it. I don't want to mention this, but there are some directors that were held after the CBN note crash of 2009. They can't ever be directors in Nigeria any longer, whether a bank or any other company. They can't be directors. So it's just the law. It can be contested, but right now that is the law. Now, there's another one you said about overbearing chairman, CEO.
Yeah.
Now, so the overbearing chairman is probably going to be an owner of that company, most likely. And if you have that kind of chairman, you just begin to pray, because they are not going to obey any corporate governance framework. And I always say to people, not every habitat is your habitat. You have a choice. Take a walk. So if their culture is not aligning with your culture, because no company celebrates misfits. If you are a misfit to culture, please just go out, because you are wasting your time there. You won't grow. You won't have peace of mind. Your career won't be preserved. So why stay there? But an overbearing chairman who is not an owner, we just have to point that person to the framework and just say, and we respect Mr. Chairman, sir. You don't have that power under the framework, but that is not a discussion you have at the board meeting. You probably have to leverage some other directors like the governance committee chairman to speak to that chairman with respect. And also, what I've found over the years is that the company secretary kind of develops a relationship with all the directors. I've had instance of telling one of my directors that everybody is afraid of you, sir. And they say, hey, I said, once you come in, everybody is shaking, sir. He said, well, I said, the way you cut down the head of finance the last time, everybody said, be careful of. I said, no. And I came to the meeting, said, no, it's the job. I'm not against anybody. You know, in a jocular manner, you deliver the message and he gets it. And then it begins to change. But some people will not change. It's their nature. And so either you find a way to make this person step down on the board, you don't re-elect. If the owners of the company feel that this person is being disruptive, you don't elect that company, you elect that director, or you walk away from that company for your peace of mind. So you have a choice. You have a choice.
Okay, all right. I'll take another question and I'll come to live questions. Someone is asking, what constitutes materiality for the INEDs? And another question is, do directors earn any other monies beyond sitting allowance? A similar question, is the non-director, the non-executive director or director on company's payroll?
So the last one is executive director. I didn't get that last one.
The non-executive director or the director, are they on the company's payroll?
Okay, so all directors are on the company's payroll. So for directors, what they get is directors' fees and sitting allowance and reimbursable expenses.
Yeah.
Reimbursable expenses mean if they come to meetings and then in the course of doing the job of the company, they maybe incur hotel expenses, transport expenses, then they'll be reimbursed for that. And then you have directors' fee and then fees for every sitting, every meeting they attend. Now, there are some companies that buy cars for their directors. Some actually have, what's it called? Health insurance for that. So they do also, but under the NCCG 2018, that's Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance, the recommendation is that directors' fees and sitting allowance and reimbursable expenses are what directors should get. The idea is that you should not so much as put directors in a position where they are so enamored by what they are receiving that their partiality, their independence is impaired. And so once they get a lot and then they become dependent on that company, their independence is impaired. The director should never get to the point where that independence is questioned. That's why just get your director's fee, sitting allowance, and reimbursable expenses. That's all they get. Yes, also maybe you send them on training, but training is just training. You are paying them to get more knowledge to do their job well. But so that's limited to it. So for you mentioned something qualifies INED. Okay, so
Yes.
what qualifies INED? Tama has defined it, and then NCCG2 defines it. I don't have the percentage offhand now, but it's just it's like 0.00% or something of ownership stake in the company. It's something that is basically just TP, not material at all. It to be such that it won't make the director impair his judgment in decision making, because if he owns and is going to get a lot of dividend, it may flow with management to say, although it is risky, but it's going to bring a lot of profit and I'm going to get dividends there, let me do it. But if he doesn't have that kind of contact or connection to the company, he's able to say, no, this is too risky. Yes, going to be profitable. I do not support it. So in a game, they should not own shares to impair their independence and objectivity on the board. So that's that.
Thank you. So let me go to Oluwatayo now. If you could unmute and ask your question, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Loladi. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for the lecture so far. I want to take my question to a seemingly different direction, away from enterprise corporations. I want to take it to startups. And I have two questions. Yeah, so in the context of a tech startup, typically a lean team between maybe 5 to 10 or 10 to 20 max of a team. So I have two questions. Excuse me, please. So a tech startup that has a 3 or 5 member kind of board, kind of structure, can the tech founder, who's also the CEO and the managing director, can this person become a non-executive director on the board over time? That is question one. The other question is, do the other co-founders, who are also shareholders, do they have to become a board member as well, or do they have to become board members as non-executive director, especially if they have other things they're involved with, or can they nominate, or do they even have to be board members at all? Those are the 2 questions I have.
So the first one on whether the founder can convert to a NED. So yes, the founder can convert to a NED. However, because of the interest and influence they have, a cooling off period is recommended. So which means when you end your tenure as CEO, you stay off the board for like 2 to 3 years, and then you can become NED after. The idea is you don't carry the baggage of executive into non-executive. You allow the company run, let somebody else run the company, and without your influence, and then they would have stabilized post your exit, and then you can join as NED. However, if it's not a regulated environment, people move immediately and nothing happens. And because there's no cooling off period, nobody is going to regulate or flag that, so you can move. However, for objectivity, for corporate governance, excellence, a cooling off period is required. So you remember when Mr. Tony Elumelu left UBA as CEO, there was a cooling period of like 3 years before he became chairman again. The same thing with Mr. Jimovia of Zenith Bank. There was a cooling. Those are regulated entities. If it was not regulated, they can just move from MD and then become chairman and nothing happens. But for regulated entities, the idea is give room, okay? Let your influence wane a bit as MD, because don't take, because it's just human nature. You step down as MD, somebody else steps in as MD. You keep controlling that, because that person that steps as MD most often will be like your ED reporting to you before you left. You say, no, that's not how we are going to do it. You forget that you are no longer MD. You begin to give instructions and then inhibit the operations of the company. But within that cooling off period, you would have purged yourself of your toga of MD and then come back as NED and sit in your rightful position. Now, for the other co-founders, they don't have to be non-executive directors. These are the shareholders in quotes. They can have their nominee sit on the board, and if they want, there's nothing stopping them from being NEDs on that board. There's no law or rule that says they can't be. But if they have something else they are doing and they won't have time, thank you, Mr. Adeyemi, 5 years for banks, and they won't have time for the business of the company, they can nominate people who are experts in that field that will do the job better, so that they can face what else they are doing while the company runs optimally.
Okay, all right then. I guess that answers our question. So I'll take 2 questions. So I have a question here, sir. It says, please, with the SEC regulation, what will happen if the MD is one of the founding members of the company? Will he give up his company? Another question is, I have heard about advisory board and governing board. Please, what is the difference between the two?
Okay, advisory board
and governing board.
Okay, so by that SEC regulation, it doesn't matter who you are. If you are founder, you've been on the board, so it didn't define whether founder, owner, or it's just director. So if you are founder and you've been MD or by whatever capacity for 10 years, then your tenure by that SEC regulation, if you are a CMO, please note that it's not all companies, it's capital market operators and companies that are considered to be of systemic importance by SEC. And they must have defined that company as systemic important company before you are bound. So if you are a private company that's not governed by SEC, you are not covered by this rule. Although SEC is saying that for best corporate governance, you should incorporate this rule. Now, what it means is that when Mr. Adeyemi goes to do board evaluation, she will say, yes, you are not bound by this rule, but best governance says that these people have already exceeded their tenure under best corporate governance. So that will start reflecting in the report of consultants going forward. So you are not governed by SEC rules. However, best corporate governance says your director has overstayed on the board. You are not bound to do it, but please pay attention to that. When you keep saying best corporate governance to a board for 1, 2, 3 years, they will say, come, please. So it means that we are not practicing best corporate governance. The questions will start coming, especially when you have INEDs on the board, and they may want to say, please, MD, it's time for you to step down. Okay, yes, we are not bound, but we want to be seen as a company practicing best corporate governance. You may have to step down, get a nominee to represent you. So he's not giving up his company. He's giving up position on the board. He's still a shareholder. And so he can put somebody he trusts, he respects to represent him, or his shares, represent him on the board while he stays, wears the toga of a shareholder and waits for the AGM to approve everything they are doing. Okay, but I know shareholders in these Lagos and in systemic companies. I know somebody was talking about a shareholder in the chat room, a shareholder who wants to be involved in day-to-day management of the company. You have that. And what can curb that is if it's a regulated entity and you whistleblow and CBN picks it up or SEC picks it up. But why do you want to do that? Because most of these people, when SEC picks it up, they will probably call the chairman before they even come to the company and CEO, we have received, and it's the way Nigeria works, and it's the way the world works. It's old boys club. We got this, we have to come into, and then they begin to say, okay, who among my members would have done this? So just walk away if you don't like it. Maybe bid your time and walk away. So you will have that. It's not legal, it's not allowed, but it happens. But in a best corporate governance experience, that will not happen. That will not happen. The shareholder should not be involved in day-to-day running of the company. So in terms of advisory board and governing board, these are supervisory boards. They are not boards that have control of the company. They are boards at best to advise the company. We don't have a governing board. I think we have a governing board. They have governing boards in South Africa, not Nigeria. South Africa has governing boards. We have the board of directors, you have the advisory, the governing board. What they basically do is to give advice. The company is not bound by those advice. However, because you have that kind of entity, you must strike that kind of structure. There must be a reason why you put that in place. So while they are not binding, their resolutions are not binding on you, you want to do what they've advised because you put them there for a reason. So it's just to look at your operations, to advise you on best practice and give you solutions of what should be done, but they don't have the bites. They can't, for example, sack the MD of the company. They don't have that kind of power. They don't, they just advise it. So that's just the difference between them and the proper board of directors.
All right, thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay, let me take some more questions here. We have about 4 or 5 more questions. Please, does the big fours in the audit company have independent directors, and what are they called? What mechanism can a board use to evaluate its own effectiveness? And I'll take one more, sir. What is the difference between a board of director and advisory board? I think you just explained that, so we can leave that out. Yeah.
Okay, so I have not worked in a big four before, but big fours are partnerships, they're not companies. So I don't think they are, because for the big four, most of them are employees of that firm. For the big four, they also have external influence. They have international affiliations. So I'm not so sure how they are structured, but they are not companies. They are not a board. They don't have a board of directors. They have a partnership arrangement, but I'm not sure what they have. But they don't have INEDs. I've never heard of INED in those big four, but they have partners who become directors, members of whatever name they are called, and they have international, board of trustees. They have international affiliation, but they are not a board of directors, so they don't have INEDs, and they are basically staff. Now, the board of trustees will probably be retired, people that are retired from that firm, have a lot of experience, who just give direction of how the firm should go. Now, the mechanism a board can use to evaluate effectiveness is, I mentioned people like the firm of DCSL, M.CIoD Adewuyi. And what they do is, now, they come in and they assess your processes and procedure. They look at your minutes and all that. And based on documentation that they've looked at, they determine how effective and how compliant your board is. And they give you a report thereafter. Now, you can also do that internally. So if you can't afford you are not big enough to afford an external assessor, the company secretary can do that internally in conjunction with internal audits. Internal audit actually does a corporate governance audit periodically, and then the company secretary can enlarge that because they have indicators, board, committees, company secretary, management. So they have indicators that they use to assess all those structures. So once you know those structures, those indicators you can assess. However, for best corporate governance practice, you can't be assessing yourself. And not many people will assess themselves and give themselves a fail. No, you say you are permissible instead of failure. You note the deficiency and say it's permissible, but an external person will tell the truth, it's a fail, and then give you a recommendation on how to get better in that area. So what you need to do is get an assessor. There are so many corporate governance consultants out there. I keep mentioning Ms. Adewuyi because she's on this call and she's a member of WIMBiz. I don't need to mention any other external person when she's there. So they can do that for you, DCSL. But get an assessor, a board governance consultant to do that for you. And so there are indicators that they will use, and then they can assess your board. But you can also do it as company secretary, although that is internal. And if an external person is looking at it, it will be skewed somehow. The weight they will attach to it will be limited because you did it yourself.
Wow. Thank you very much, sir. I will allow Abimbola now to mute and ask a question live. Please go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. Good evening.
Good
sir.
Good evening.
Yeah. This is a comment, and I would like to have your thoughts on it. I know some industries are heavily regulated. For instance, the financial services industry. However, I've seen situations where the chairman of the board is openly and directly involved in the day-to-day management of the organization, including strategic decision-making, which, to my understanding, is it's not, it shouldn't be. So what are your thoughts? Or rather, what is your thought on this kind of scenario?
You know, it's not just in financial services. I won't mention names on this call, but we know companies in this Lagos where the chairman, in fact, this person is not even chairman, is a shareholder, but strategy is done in the sitting room. So these things happen. Whether we like it or not, it will continue to happen. The only way it can stop is if this is flagged and then escalated to the regulators. And the regulators can come in and sanction management and sanction that shareholder. However, like I said, it's probably not worth the problem for you. Because if you do that, then you are flagged. The next place we are going, this is the person that went to report his chairman. No. And then you don't have your own office. You want to work with somebody, and then you put a block on your own career. Just walk away if you're not comfortable with it. So there's no way you can stop it because this person holds the reins. This person is the founder of the company. You don't agree with him. He will just call his people that are nominated to become it. They just fire you. They just fire you, and then you truncate your own career because just find your level, and if that environment is not a fit for you, find a place where it's a fit for you. It's not worth the trouble. Just go, leave the place. You can't control it. You can't, even if you fight it, it's not worth it because the structures that will support you in the fight will probably be compromised, you know. So it's but it happens. And I've seen it. It's still going to happen on Monday morning because they're still going to go to his house to do ESCO. And then they come back, you see the MD shouting. The MD is not the one shouting. The voice is coming from somebody behind him. And the MD also wants to continue to ride his BMW, and so the MD will comply. You know, we see it every day. It's not best corporate governance. If that's not the culture that you can tolerate, please step aside. Look for something that will fit. Give you rest of mind. Mm. Mm.
All right, thank you so much, sir. So my final
Pleasure.
question is, I'll just batch the last two. The question is, please speak to the minority shareholders' recourse to action where most decisions of the board is constantly at variance with theirs. And finally, cost to income ratio of 30%. Is it company specific or universal?
Okay. Okay. So if I start with the last one, so it was that company. And it was the efficiency level expected by the board of directors. And don't forget, I said the board and management would have sat down and agreed the indicators. So the indicator at that point was that 25 to 28%. However, even if you have serious economic macros, whatever, it must not go beyond 30%. So that was company specific. It's not industry related. Now, if you go to a GTB, for example, in this banking industry, I don't know what it is now, but GTB used to be between 25 and 28%, despite their large size, because it speaks to the rate of efficiency of the bank. Almost everything was automated. And so footprints and the heads that they needed were not so many. And then the rates at which they drew income from all those automated roles was extremely high. So I don't know what it is now, but it used to be the lowest in the industry. I've not checked this year. I don't know what I didn't check their annual report last year, so I don't know what it was, but it used to be between 30 and 35. It was the lowest in the industry. Okay, so it's company specific, it's not industry specific. But there are some industries where no matter how hard you try, because of your dependence on foreign exchange and all those things, if you do 55%, you've done well. That's what I mean, especially construction industry, because you are bringing cement and all those things in, the materials you use. So there could be industry specific cost to income ratio. However, underneath that, if you improve your efficiency and automate your process, you can go under industry expectation or industry average. Now, in terms of minority shareholders, well, unfortunately, the minority will have their say, majority will have their way. And except you can prove oppressive conduct or fairness, you don't have any recourse. So it's like if I have 1,000 shares, since I mentioned GTB, and I go to a GTB AGM, and I say I want Segun Agbaje sacked now, they will take my recommendation and do a vote. And when they vote, what will happen? My 1,000 will not speak anything now out of millions. I just say, who is this nuisance talking by the side? Institutional investors have already resolved with him on what they want to do. So minority will have his say, majority will have his way. And except you can prove oppressive conduct inimical to your interests, you can't win. So it's the cost of ownership. People that have the money hold the business. Unfortunately, it's the way of the world. It's the way of the world.
Hey, thank you so much, Mr. Adewuyi, for generously sharing your wisdom and for addressing our questions with such clarity. There were so many insights from the conditions and the duties of being a director to the importance of understanding sustainability to the criminal liability of directors and cost of income ratio, which I'm sure a lot of people will remember, and to the fact that there is no PIP for MDs. You have taught us a lot this evening, and we'll go back with all of it. So we are truly grateful for your time and expertise. So ladies, at this point, I would like to pass the torch now to Mrs. Chidima Obiejesi, the member of the 2025 WIMBoard Committee, WIMBIS, who will deliver the closing remarks and announcement. Thank you for staying up with us. Thank you very much. Over to you, ma'am.
Wow. Thank you so much, moderator. And thank you so much to our guest speaker, Mr. Alawusa.
Thank you.
You have done so well. In fact, I've so enjoyed myself and taking copious notes that I look forward to listening to you all over again. Let me join the our moderator to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And may God bless you for sharing knowledge so generously that you have even blessed our mentees here and all the participants here. I would also like to thank the mentees who have taken time to attend this. I'm sure that anybody that is not here today have missed a lot because Mr. Alawusa have shared with no holds bound at all. He shared all he knew. Thank you so much again. And let me say thank you to WIMBiz itself and the entire board. It's amazing that we took up this challenge of preparing women for board roles, because you know, we women now, we can't afford to drop the balls. The men can do what they like. The society will excuse them. But once it's a woman, what you hear is that, maybe she's a mother. Hey, these women said, we said it. So, but at least it's a good thing that we are being prepared for this, so that when opportunity comes, it will meet preparedness and we will just be there to deliver. So thank you, WIMBiz. Thank you, every one of us here. I would also like to use this opportunity to give us some announcement, hoping that we will take the knowledge we have gotten today. We will hold on to it. For those of us who are already sitting on board, we will apply it generously. And for those of us who are waiting for that opportunity, of course, that means that we are once more equipped. And that's what the board have been doing all this while, equipping us for that special time when we'll have the opportunity. For me, what Mr. Alawusa said that stood out for me was that the role of the board is to pull management out of the trees and let them focus on the forest. That is the bigger picture. Thank you, sir, for sharing all that. So I will go ahead and share some announcements, which is very important that we take note of. And please note, please, let's all remain patient and take quick evaluation of today's program. We've shared a lot, and I'm sure the evaluation link has been posted in the chat box for us. I hope we have completed that. For those who can, please complete those evaluation form now. And those of us who couldn't get it, not to worry, it will be shared with us via a follow-up email, and we can go ahead and please evaluate. It helps us to know what to do next. It helps us to be able to continue to provide value for you. And the next WIMBiz mentoring session comes up on Saturday, 26th July 2025. The session will be the second boardroom simulation, which will be mentee-led. Details have been sent to all mentees. Please take notes. And secondly, we have the WIMBiz graduation coming up for this batch. The WIMBoard graduation comes up on Saturday, August 16, 2025. This will be hybrid. That means it's virtual and physical. It's a networking event, and you have opportunity to network with experienced board members. There will also be presentation of certificate to both mentees and mentors who have participated. Thirdly, we kindly invite our dear mentees who are not WIMBiz associates to become one today. And please, you can go ahead and make inquiries via membership. And I encourage all of us to try and be, whether you are a member of the WIMBiz or associate or not, please join us. And all of us who have also participated in this program, let us be sure we participate in the graduation ceremony. It's very important. Fourthly, the WIMBiz Big Sisters program is scheduled to hold on September and October 2025 and aims to support over 1,500 girls ages 14 to 18 in Nigeria by providing mentorship, leadership, training, empowerment, education, and essential tools for success, such as stationaries, workbooks, and hygiene packs. Your sponsorship can help a girl dream big and create a brighter future. Sponsor a girl today by checking the link below. I mean, the link will be showed to us. We know how important it is to sponsor, to support each other. We are all women, and even for the men among us, let's sponsor the girl child. They say he who trains a girl trains a whole nation. So please, it's important that we join hands with WIMBIZ and execute that project. Let us also save the date. 24th September, WIMBIZ annual conference is coming up. It is scheduled to hold on the 6th and 7th of November. The 24th, pardon me, please, the 24th WIMBIZ annual conference is coming up. It is scheduled to hold on the 6th and 7th of November 2025. We all need to be there. You can't afford to miss that. And to register for all our upcoming programs, kindly click on the link provided in the chat box or visit our website, which is wimbiz.org to register. Kindly follow WIMBIZ on all our social media platforms to be abreast of all our programs, activities, events, announcements. And it's been showed here for you, the Facebook, WIMBIZ, WIMBIZ at Instagram, WIMBIZ at X, our website, www.wimbiz.org, Women in Management and Public Service, and our YouTube, WIMBIZ, and then our LinkedIn platform. You are all welcome to check our handles, follow us, so you can be abreast of all that is going on in WIMBIZ. We hope you enjoyed today's program, and we expect to see you promptly too in the next program. We wish you and everyone present a pleasant evening, and we look forward to continuing to interact, continuing in our learning session, and continue to apply the learnings we keep getting from WIMBIZ. Let's also tell others to tell others to tell others, because the next batch will come up, and we want as many women as possible to benefit from this program. Thank you very much. As announced by the anchor, my name is Chidinma Justina Obiejesi, a member of the WIMBIZ board. Thank you. God bless you all. Thank you. Over to you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for staying for the past 2.5 hours. I believe this was an investment worth your time. So until we'll see you again in the next session, enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a fruitful one. Bye from my hand. Bye, everyone.